on the Townsend Town website somewhere, you are listed as the Assistant Director of the Senior Center, is that right?
I am. I started there. Matter of fact, I just had my third anniversary. I started on December 1st, 2021. I was the Assistant Program Coordinator, and through assassination, sorry, just kidding, through some folks retiring, I ended up as the Assistant Director.
Hello, and welcome to episode 42 of the BandWagon podcast for the week of December 9th, 2024. On this edition of the program, news and notes from around the band world, including an all-community band first strain, a virtual return to the streets of New York City, a story about a cannon, sort of, and I have a conversation with a friend and colleague. I'm your host, Rob Hammerton. Hello, dear listener. This week would appear to be something of a pivot out of the marching season and into the indoor, seated, warm concert season. We will cover low temperatures and precipitation, but we'll also look ahead to the days when the big question is, will we all fit on the stage? The days during which sound delay is less of an issue. The days during which double reeds are once again free to roam. So, put those music folders in score order, and away we go. Let's play the first strain. In this episode's first strain, news and notes from the band world. Dateline, Danbury, Connecticut. The American Prize National Nonprofit Competitions in the Performing Arts has announced the winner, runners-up, and honorable mentions for its 2024 Bands and Wind Ensembles category. In the Youth/Schools division, honorable mention went to the Brunswick High School Honors Wind Ensemble from Bath, Maine. In third place was the Orono Wind Ensemble from Delano, Minnesota. In second place, the Thompson High School Symphonic Band from Alabaster, Alabama, and the co-winners were the Fort Worth, Texas Youth Orchestral Wind Ensemble and the Thompson High School Wind Ensemble, also from Alabaster, Alabama. In the College and University Division, honorable mention went to the Campbellsville University Wind Ensemble, third place to the University of Nebraska at Omaha Symphonic Wind Ensemble, second place went to the California State University Fullerton Wind Symphony, and the winner was the Arizona State University Wind Ensemble. In the Community Band Division, there was a tie for third place involving the Big River Brass Band of LeClaire, Iowa, and the Arizona Winds. There was a tie for second place involving the Allentown Band, the Cleveland Winds, and the East Texas Chamber Winds. And the winner was the South Jersey Area Wind Ensemble. The American Prize National Nonprofit Competitions in the Performing Arts is the nation's most comprehensive series of contests in the performing arts. The American Prize is unique in scope and structure. It's designed to recognize and reward the best performing artists, directors, ensembles, and composers in the United States at professional, college and university, community, and high school levels based on submitted recordings. There is no live competition, and there are no age limits. Since 2010, the American Prize has been awarded annually in many areas of the performing arts. It's attracted thousands of qualified contestants from all 50 states and has awarded nearly $150,000 in prizes. Dateline, Gig Harbor, Washington. Credit to the reporting and writing of Marcia Scott for the online publication Gig Harbor Now. The Harbor Winds Ensemble of the Narrows Music Society will begin a new season in December with a new creative director and conductor, Mel Braisley. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Send me a correction if I'm wrong. Braisley currently teaches music at First Creek Middle School in Tacoma, Washington, and has performed with the South Sound Symphonic Band since 2017, as well as with Seattle's Formation Wind Band. Braisley said that when they finished a mini conductor residency with Formation Wind Band, they were inspired to work with adults. Braisley said, quote, "I met all of these amazing humans and conductors and was inspired to push my conducting craft and continue to be a musician, but outside of just teaching. I'm a teacher in every sense of the word. If I can get someone excited about playing music again, I've done my job. I listen to stories of people coming back to community band, so I'm excited to expand Harbor Winds and bring people back who miss band." The The 40-member Harbor Winds Ensemble began 11 years ago as a chance for local musicians to perform and to provide support for music education in the middle and high schools. One of the 3 concerts the group performs each year features young, local artists as a way to demonstrate to local youth musicians that music is a lifelong endeavor. The first concert of the season, on Sunday, December 15th, will feature music by numerous composers, amongst them Kate Nishimura, Percy Granger, Kataj Copley, and Nubia Danwan. And that's news and notes from the band world for this week. If you have a news item you think should be included in this segment, send me a link via email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. Now we'll take a quick break. Meet you on the other side. Hope you'll stay with me. Okay, let's pick it up at the second strain. This week's second strain is a brief story, actually 2, inspired by the onset of December, and therefore the season of outdoor holiday caroling gigs and such. My more recent experience with this version of the band activity, play till you can't feel your fingers, has been with the Neshoba Valley Concert Band, of which I have spoken previously here and will speak again. But probably my first experience with outdoor caroling gigs in the band world was with, you guessed it, the old Minuteman Marching Band. There was an annual event, a sort of holiday festival in miniature, featuring games and music and such, on the Amhersttown Common. It happened usually on the first Friday late afternoon of December, after our last football game, but before our postseason banquet. The event was held in the shade of, well, by that point it was absolutely after sunset, but still, the marching band would go over and play in what would have been the shade cast by a huge maple tree. And the event was called Merry Maple. Now, I'm sure that there are plenty of people who have stories about that gig, specifically what happens when band members prepare for the gig by getting merry. I personally do not have any of those stories. Goodness no. I do have a couple of stories that are instead about musical silliness. Here's the first one. Now, the band would spend its regular rehearsal time, 4:40 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Thursday, banging through the various marching arrangements of holiday favorites, and then we'd do the gig on Friday around that time. My senior year, during one of those rehearsals, it was determined that at the end of our arrangement of Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride, instead of the usual trumpet player doing the horse whinny, we should extend that fermata and add stuff. So it was trumpeter Mark on the first whinny, trumpeter Heidi playing a mellophone for a second whinny, and then tuba player Sean playing the whinny on his sousaphone. Horsey, horsey, elephant. Now, my other story springs from the fact that we would extend our Merry Maple performance beyond the maybe 6 or 7 holiday arrangements that we had handy by taking the opportunity to play our halftime material one last time, because why not? Captive audience, and Twist and Shout is a holiday favorite, surely, somewhere, right? This Merry Maple story comes from my sophomore year, 1985, and to get why it's funny, you have to understand 3 things about one of my early UMass band friends. Her name was Beth Elam. She was a senior when I was a freshman, and she was what we called a band aide, which is to say she couldn't schedule marching band as a class, as she had in her first 3 years at UMass, marching a mellophone, but she appeared on Saturdays and at some other performances to move equipment, carry stuff, just be helpful. And right around Merry Maple time each year, apparently, somebody in the band always took the opportunity to sing, "Oh, Little Town of Beth Elam," and she encouraged this. See, the first thing you need to know about my friend Beth is this. She was and is funny. I mean, before my first college semester, I had met people who were humorous, could make jokes, but Beth seemed born to it. It was partly the material, partly the delivery, partly her voice, not quite as chirpy as the old Betty Boop cartoon character, but it all came together very well. I met Beth early one Friday morning in October of 1984, my freshman year, as I was sitting in an aisle seat toward the front of Bus 1, one of the 5 buses the UMass band was about to travel on for our double overnight trip to the University of Delaware. This whirlwind of a human bounded up the steps of the bus, made a hard right turn, bounced a few steps down the aisle, stopped, looked at me, plopped herself down in the seat across the aisle from me, and said in that wonderful chirpy voice, "Hi, my name's Beth. Who the hell are you?" Being an obedient and slightly nervous freshman, I introduced myself carefully, and 20 minutes later, she had learned everything there was to know about me, and I had made a friend. one who made me chuckle nearly constantly for the rest of that semester, and also in the time since, any time we've crossed paths. The second thing you need to know about Beth is she was and is about 5'3" if she was lucky. Just this relatively little character. So, okay, back to the Mary Maple gig, the first week of December 1985, my sophomore year. Follow me here, it's time travel, but it's okay. Beth had taken an extra semester to finish, I think it was a biochemistry degree or something close. So she hung out with the band during that 85 season as a band-aid in moments when she was able. And one of those moments was Mary Maple. So as we boarded the buses that were going to take us from campus to a side street not far from the town common, she hopped on too. In town, we all stepped off the buses, got into the marching block formation, and marched to our cadence around the corner to the big maple tree. After we played all our holiday items, we played all our halftime tunes, and one of those was the J. Bocook marching arrangement of the 1812 Overture. And here's the third thing you need to know about Beth. As one of the band-aids, she had been one of the people who crouched down either in an end zone or on the back sideline, and at the appropriate moment during the finale of 1812, loaded and fired one of the little toy cannons that we had acquired to make sure that our 1812 Overture was a multimedia event. Load, wait, pull the cord, and boom! Rinse and repeat until the last chord was over, and then load and fire the cannon again just for fun. So we finished up our non-holiday music at Mary Maple with 1812, because what do you follow that with? The brass blared, the drums cracked, the woodwinds played the melody somewhere in the middle, and then more brass, more drums, the big finish. It was like the 4th of July on the 6th of December. Except, understandably, no cannons. I mean, there were little kids standing around, nowhere really safe to fire off 2 or 3 toy cannons in the middle of Amherst. Not to mention we probably didn't have the right permit, and the Amherst police station was right over there. I mean, really, let's just not. So we were done, and so the battery fired up the cadence, and we marched away toward our waiting buses. As we marched away, 2 abreast, I could see that I was about to pass the spot on the outskirts of the town common where my friend Beth had been standing all during the show. Jokingly, I called out to her, "Hey, Beth, where were the cannons?" I thought I was making the joke, but Beth replied, "Didn't you see me? I was standing over here jumping up and down, yelling, 'Boom!' And she demonstrated, not quite making it as high as my eyebrows. Only in band. Beth Elam, everybody. Oh, little town of Beth Elam. Anyway, after a brief pause to let the smoke clear, stand by for the trio section. I do hope you will. Okay, let's modulate and get into the trio section. This week in the trio section, I said I was going to bring up the Neshoba Valley Concert Band soon, and I'm about to deliver with some assistance. My guest this week is a gentleman who absolutely possesses more institutional knowledge about that subject than I do, and today I shall try to get maybe a little bit caught up on that, among other things that I'm betting will come up. Please help me welcome to the program my friend Greg Smith. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I'm well. Thank you for jumping in and doing this.
No problem.
And not to do spoilers right away or anything, but you've been sort of my gateway to a whole sector of the band world that I had not really even dabbled in before, but now I'm all in. And we'll get to that very soon, possibly with the help of my standard set of introductory questions, which help lay out a bit of groundwork for my listenership before we dig in further. So first question for you. What's your primary instrument? Not that I don't know this.
Well, my primary instrument these days has been the alto saxophone. I've played all of them at various times, but right now it's alto.
Were there other instruments that happened along the way as well?
Well, I played tenor in a Dixieland band for a while. I played baritone in a big band for about 20 years. I dabble in soprano sax to entertain myself, but it sounds like someone killing a cat, so I stay away from that in public. There's been some other dabbling recently in the last couple of years with some string instruments, so we can talk about that at some point if you'd like.
So is there a list of bands that you've been active with in your life?
Yes, it's a fairly short list. besides the stuff in middle school and high school, I went to University of Maine at Orono, and I was in the Orono bands, marching, concert, pep band, that kind of stuff. I moved to Massachusetts not long after graduation, within about a year and a half. And friends of mine from college played in the Lexington Bicentennial Band. So I knew that as I moved, I would go and play in that organization. So at the end of 1982, I moved to Mass, and I made sure I had my saxophone with me, and I played in that band for about 19 years. And it was out of that band that we had a big band called the Moonlighters that I ended up playing in for about 20 years on the baritone. I moved further out from Boston around 2005, and it made it difficult to attend rehearsals in Lexington. So I started looking for something more locally to where I was living. And I came across the Harvard Town Band, and I joined them back in 1998. And at the time, it was a fairly small organization. If everyone showed up at one time, it would be between 15 and 20 people.
Wow.
And we did a concert on the Common in the town of Harvard every other Sunday during the summer. And invariably, the band outnumbered the audience. Through a few years following that, we changed our format, and I was part of that process. We became the Neshoba Valley Concert Band, and I can talk more about those changes we made later on if you want. And I've been playing in the Neshoba Valley Concert Band for, now since 1998. I think I'm currently the longest consecutive musician in the organization.
It has occurred to me that we just missed celebrating your 25th.
You're right, we did. Oh well. Yeah. I never even crossed my mind.
I can think of very few people that I know who would be in less desperate need of hoopla. So has the Harvard Town Band, aka Neshoba Valley, been the end point for you? In terms of band playing, anyway.
Out of the Neshoba Valley Concert Band, we had a Dixieland band for a while. Members of it moved away, and so we haven't done that for a while, but that was a good time. So that's, I think, the number of bands that I have been in since my musical debut at the ripe old age of 9.
I wonder if you found a discernible difference between the Lexington Bicentennial Band and the Harvard Town Band when you got to it, and or the Neshoba Valley incarnation of it now. Famously, every community band is a little bit different. The personnel may be a little bit different. The history of it might be a little bit different, and the priorities might be a little bit different. And in a lot of cases, the decisions that are made about what performances to do and what scale and for what audiences and all that sort of stuff. Were there differences in the Harvard Town Band that you found immediately that you cared for or didn't?
So I think I'll answer that by first saying in Lexington, it was a very structured concert season. I don't know if it's still the same, but they would do a concert indoors in February. They would do a second concert indoors in April. And then during the summer, they would do 10 concerts on the bandstand in Lexington. It was always the same year to year. The band had a following. There was always good crowds at the concerts. When I came to the Harvard Town Band and ultimately the Neshoba Valley Concert Band, as I said a while ago, it was an organization that typically outnumbered the audience, usually significantly, and it was not a large organization. I joined the board not long after I joined the band, and I started to think about how we might increase, the number of people that were hearing us. And it occurred to me that if we played at other people's functions, the other organization would be drawing the people in for whatever the function was, and we would be providing entertainment.
Sort of a built-in audience, yeah.
So we made that change more than 20 years ago, and I think it served us well. It got us more publicity. We ultimately got more members. We've been in front of a lot of ears over that time period.
And when I jumped in with the band, I was struck by the lack of, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, I was struck by the lack of a standalone concert on the schedule. I quickly realized what you were doing and presumed that there was a plan to it, to sort of create that built-in audience.
We have tried a couple times over the years to do our own event, and it's never been well attended. We get family members of the folks in the band, but we don't draw a lot of people from other, just coming to hear us play. It always helps to be tied in with somebody else's stuff.
Would you judge that you are the typical community band member?
I don't know. I mean, I know how I approach being involved in music in general and in the band. From the perspective of, I just like to get out there once a week, get together with folks, play some music. From that aspect, I'm probably fairly typical. It's something I did early in life, and I enjoyed it, and I wanted to continue doing it. From another perspective, it was one of the most favorite things that I did in my life was being involved in music through, high school, college, and afterward. In college, I became a member of the National Honorary Band Fraternity, Kappa Kappa Psi.
I didn't know that.
It was always a philosophy that we would continue throughout our lives to promote music and bands in particular. And I've always tried to live with that philosophy. Whenever I've been involved in a band, I try and do whatever I can to make it a more enjoyable experience for people, and one that I hope people look at fondly when they think about their time with us.
As I asked the question, I thought to myself, that either is a dumb question because there is no such thing as a typical community band member because they're all over the place. And at the same time, I think that I've approached community band work in the same way I approach church choir work, which is to say there are very few people who are professional church choir members. Although we do have people in the group who either are professionals or could be. And we also have people in our group who have picked up the instrument either after a long time or after never having played it, kind of thing. But the fun tightrope that I walk, and I don't complain about it, it's a part of the thing, is to make sure that the professional grade people are not bored to tears and the people who are just starting out of the instruments are not wiped out by it. And in either case, it's not in our best interests to drive people away even unintentionally. With the idea that community band ought to be fun, everybody's idea of fun is different.
Yes.
So when you were at Maine, based on our conversations in the past, I'm prepared to think that you were not a music major.
Oh, no, actually, I majored in electrical engineering. But I spent more time in the music building than I did in the EE building.
Preach.
Yeah.
Not to rocket completely past an entire electrical engineering career, but as that wound down, I know you made a connection that, as it happens, got our band a nice little gig in a nice little venue, but it sent you down a different musical trail. Talk about that a little bit.
After I retired from my professional career, I decided to get a retirement job, and I worked 3 days a week at a senior center here in Townsend, Massachusetts, where I live. A couple of years ago, a gentleman approached us and say, "Hey, I would like to teach a class on building cigar box guitars." And being someone who likes to work with wood and that kind of stuff, I said, that sounds really interesting. So we put it together. We had about a dozen people. I was one of them that took the class, and we made 3-string primitive guitars starting from cigar boxes, the old wooden cigar boxes. That was a lot of fun. It took us about 3 months to do it. And then after that, the guy that was leading it said, "Why don't we now get together and jam?" So once a week, we all got together there at the senior center, and we would play our cigar box guitars and sing. And it got to be pretty fun. And And then the leader said, why don't we open it up to other string instruments? So people started going out and getting ukuleles or bringing guitars, because some of the people that played the cigar box guitar also played the six string. So I ended up playing a baritone ukulele, and I have since moved to a six string guitar, and I get together with some of the guys from the senior center group a couple times a month, and we four of us get together and just play six strings together. It wasn't something I was looking specifically to do, but it kind of fell in my lap. I had a great time, and it's just another avenue of music that's out there to explore.
Now, you mentioned your wife, who, spoiler alert, I know as well, thanks to the band. She sits at the front corner of the flute section, and I regularly, by accident, hit her music stand with my conducting baton. Whoopsie. It occurred to me just recently, I was kind of mentally looking at the band in my mind and thinking, how many married couples do we have in this band? More than a couple of them, and we've also got parent-kid combinations. And did you meet your wife, Angela, in the band world?
Funny story. Early in the 2000s time frame, I was doing the publicity for the band, and I used to make sure. This is back when we had newspapers.
I remember
those?
Yeah, vaguely.
And I used to let various newspapers know that we had concerts coming up, and once a year I'd put out an article about the band and encourage people to come and join us, even if you haven't played for a long time or whatever. Take the instrument out of the closet and come in and see what it's all about. So my wife read one of those articles, my now wife, and came and joined the band. And the rest is history.
We've known each other now 2.5 years. I didn't know that story.
Yep. Matter of fact, I proposed to her at a band rehearsal.
No.
Yes. I checked with our former conductor and just said, hey, I'm planning to do this. Will this ruin your rehearsal in any way? He says, no, go ahead and do it. So I did. We got married in Vegas, and part of the deal was we could have our wedding on the internet. So I let people know, and I know that another band member hosted a party, and they projected the whole thing up on the side of their garage, and people attended and saw it from that perspective.
Toward the end of these, I ask a bunch of questions, and one of them is, have you got a favorite band story you want to tell? I would be appalled if that wasn't your favorite one.
That is one of my favorite ones. So yeah, I can't think of any other real stories that come to mind. You know,
particularly if we want Angela to listen to this podcast and go away from it.
Yes.
Happy.
Yes.
She is now involved with a musical activity at the Senior Center as well, is she not?
She is. Yep. She didn't take the cigar box guitar class because she was working still, but she retired in June of last year. After that, she wanted to get involved a little bit, so she got herself an auto harp. Press the button, play the chord.
Yeah.
So she played that a while, and then Priscilla Swain, member in our band, they got together and they wanted to start a women's music group to encourage women to come learn like ukulele, learn to read music. So they've been doing that at the Senior Center. And now Angela is playing ukulele in our band there, which we call the 3-chord strum band, because a lot of the music is 3 chords.
That fourth one's just window dressing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, in the homework that I dutifully did, I didn't just sit there and say, I know Greg pretty well, I'll wing this, because I am a journalism major to start with. And so I got digging around a little bit, and on the Townsend Town website somewhere, you are listed as the assistant director of the Senior Center, is that right?
I am. I started there. Matter of fact, I just had my 3rd anniversary. I started on December 1st, 2021. I was the assistant program coordinator, and through assassination, sorry, just kidding. Through some folks retiring, I ended up as the assistant director. It's a part-time job. It's perfect for me being retired. I work 19 hours a week, and I bring a certain skill set to the table through my 40-year career in business, where I led people much of that time, and I have that skill set. It seems like I think I said maybe earlier, I seem to end up in a leadership position in many of the organizations I get involved with. And as you know, I'm the president of the Neshoba Valley Concert Band, and I've done that a couple different times, but all put together, I've been president for about 15 years.
Now, that little bit of humor that you unleashed, first of all, I laughed hard at it, but not because it was out of character. I don't even think we've gotten specific about why it is that we know each other, but in the 2.5 years I've been part of the Neshoba Valley Concert Band organization, you've been the president of it, and you've got a certain style of operating that I feel like I can work with. Well, what I did find out a while ago is that you were in that role long ago, and then you weren't. And then what, as soon as you think you're out, they rope you back in.
Well, I can't remember the number of years I had done it for, probably about 5 or 6, and things were going pretty well. I was really busy with my career at the point, and I thought it might be a good time to let someone else take over. And so I left the board and just was a regular musician with the band week to week for a few years. After about 3 years, I think the person that succeeded me was looking to make a change, and I was approached by a few people in the band, and they asked me if I would consider taking over again. So I said, sure. Things have settled down in my life a little bit, and yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And I've been doing it ever since.
Always nice to do it by request.
Yes, yes. I think I'm approaching the end of my run as president.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I've mentioned it to a few people, and I've been talking about it a couple of years. There were some things that I want to accomplish for the organization. I feel that I've helped the organization do those things. One was to regain our tax-free status, our 501c3 status, which was lost at one point. We had some wonderful folks in the band that helped out to meet with an attorney and basically get that on track, and we were able to regain that status. And then the other thing that I have been holding on for, and is now more than complete, was I knew at some point we would be transitioning from one conductor, doing a search and selecting a new person, and then moving on from there. And that was the other big thing that I was holding on for as the president of the organization. So that it's in our past. Things have been going great since, and it's a good time to step down.
Well, I'm going to go into my aw shucks routine here, and only partly to deflect away from that, I'm going to point out that during your presidential administration, as it were, COVID happened, and you had to work to bring the band back from that.
Oh, I've kind of put that in the back of my mind, but you're right. We went for a 15-month period with no rehearsals. And when we started up, we started playing outside. We found a place where that would let us do that and have access to bathrooms and such if we needed them inside. We started up with about 10, 12 people, and we got some different kind of music that it would allow us to play, the first, second, third, and fourth part with various combinations of instruments. As long as you had somebody on each part, you could play the music. Fortunately, it never got down to just 4 people, but it allowed us to get going. And as people became more comfortable with the process of coming out of COVID, the band has grown. And I think if everybody showed up at one time, which never happens because of life.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone showed up, we'd be around 50 members at this point. The stage would be crowded.
Well, through all that, and those are some pretty significant life crisis moments in a band's life that you got to deal with. Is there some thought process that you have, some overarching philosophy that shapes your approach to leading a community band?
Our band and other organizations that I've been in, every so often there's a crisis. COVID was ours that we had to navigate through. My philosophy with anything like that is try and navigate it with as little drama as possible. Typically that's the last thing people want is drama, especially when it's something they're going out to. They do it as a hobby. They want to have fun. People don't want drama. I've tried to maintain the band in such a way that we minimize the drama of the organization. If someone sends an email that maybe they shouldn't, I tend to ignore it rather than inflame the situation. If I can, Yep. I hope that others would look back at the last few years and and say, yeah, they've had fun. It hasn't been overtaxing from a drama perspective or anything like that.
Well, people in these sorts of organizations vote with their feet, and it seems to me that people have not voted with their feet out the door. So that speaks to the success, I guess.
I hope that's the case. But it's not just me. It's you, the way you manage a rehearsal. I very much like the way that you operate. I think others do too. It's not something we talk about. But like you said, if people didn't like it, they probably wouldn't be there. And the membership has been growing. As you know, we've gotten a lot of younger members. It's good to see, a younger generation than myself starting to participate.
Well, again, thank you for those thoughts. I do my best. And another element of any success that the band enjoys, I think, is an executive board full of good folks, and some of whom voluntarily stepped away from the board last year saying they wanted to make room for some of those newer, younger people. And not everybody in the world would do that.
Yes. Yep. I'm hoping some of them will step up for some of the more involved leadership positions.
Crossed fingers emoji.
Yes.
So again, I feel like we already answered one of the questions that I tend to ask as we head for the finish line of these sessions, but the other ones await, and it's fun to move to those questions with all of our conversation as backdrop or background, because sometimes when I do this, the answers relate very strongly, and other times they come out of left field, but it's all good. So I will start this little pack of questions with, what's one of your favorite pieces of band music that you've played?
I don't really have a single favorite. I have favorite genres, as I think you well know. The big band stuff is my absolute favorite to play. I enjoy show tunes, that kind of stuff, which was probably one of the first words I ever said to you back when we were in a conductor search. I remember you asked me, what does the band play? And I said, well, we play marches and show tunes and some other stuff.
Yeah. Whereupon I made it into the band's unofficial slogan.
But I think those are my favorites.
Is there a piece of band music, or a kind of a band music, I guess, that you haven't played?
There is one piece of music that I have never played. And to be completely honest, I don't think I have the chops to play it. But there is someone now that I think does, and that would be you. And I would like to see the band do the piece Persuasion. Are you familiar? An alto sax solo.
Oh.
Might be worth looking into.
Note to self, particularly as this has now become a public conversation. Now I have to, but
yeah.
Well done, sir. Well done.
That would be something that we might consider highlighting in the future, is have you play something with the band.
It's so bizarre to have a conductor say, it's really not about me, because who else stands up there and flaps his arms all the whole time? But interesting. Let's think about that.
And I will say it's not about any of us. It's about whether our audience enjoys what they're seeing. It's about putting on a good show.
I'll frame it that way.
And I think that would be a great show.
Somewhat related, is there a band that you would love to perform with that you haven't, either because you're not the right age or you're not in the right place or you don't live in the right time?
I can honestly say I don't have anything in mind. I'm very happy with the Neshoba Valley Concert Band. It fits in with my lifestyle, with my interests, and I'm having a great time. And I hope to be able to do it for quite some time to come.
Well, as always, a pleasure doing business with you, although our sidebar conversations at rehearsals usually tend not to be recorded.
Yeah. Yes.
But I will happily go on the record as saying that, first, two things. One, I am having a grand old time conducting that band, and also I can think of no better personality than yourself to be the band's president. As I arrived and I got somewhat settled in, I feel like we're on the same page, both in terms of what makes sense for this particular band and also how our personalities seem to complement each other fairly well. So if it hasn't been obvious, I am grateful not just for today's conversation, but them all. It continues to be a great thing, I think.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Feelings mutual.
Excellent. Okay, we'll observe a brief fermata, and then I'll return with a little bit of one-stop shopping for all your parade needs. This continues to be BandWagon. Here comes the dogfight. This week's dogfight could be a band-related internet rabbit hole of the week. Except that it's one single YouTube video. Obviously, YouTube will provide what it thinks are related videos along the side of that webpage, so you are welcome to fall down a rabbit hole of your own making on this subject. This video, which I'll link to in our show notes, is a 15-minute compilation of the band performances on the Star at the Macy's storefront from last month's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Nothing else. No pop stars lip-syncing, very little in the way of NBC announcers going on and on without really knowing anything about what they're talking about, which is, of course, another topic for another day. Just bands. Soggy bands. Core-style bands, HBCU bands, bands playing pop tunes, bands playing tunes from their competition field shows inspired by the work of whomever that avant-garde painter was. Notably, the band from the University of South Carolina playing Greensleeves as filtered through Malagueña. Holy! And all of those bands playing and moving and looking for all the world as if it were not raining hard out there on the streets of New York City, even though it was, all morning. And I heard tell that the East Tennessee State University band didn't have ponchos at all morning long. Oh, guys, sorry about that. And all those bands were really playing. No pre-recorded tracks, actual music. Weather be hanged. My only real challenge with the NBC video production, a couple of times the parade coverage began to cut to commercial before the bands were done with their performance. Not cool, NBC. Not cool. Apart from that, though, cool and breezy, with a 100% chance of rain. But bands powering through anyway, because that's what we do. Okay, one last break, and I'll finish with a CODA that asks a very important question. To wrap up this week, let's take the CODA. For the CODA this week, a brief call to action. Next week, the 18th through the 21st of December, is the 78th Annual Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic. It is famously held in Chicago around this time every year, and thanks to my being a church musician and everything, I haven't had the opportunity to attend the clinic since the second Clinton administration. I mean, I work for lovely people who are very accommodating when I have a schedule conflict, but I can't count on them being very understanding if I ask them if it's okay if I bug out for Chicago the week before Christmas. One day, maybe, but that will require me not to be a church choir director, and I'm not quite ready to put that project down just yet. Meanwhile, I know a bunch of people personally who do get to go to Midwest some or all of the time, and I would love to put together a set of Midwest clinic stories for next week's episode, whether I know you or not. So, Have you got a story you'd like to tell? It can be about the actual content of the clinic or a story of getting from the airport to the hotel and back. It can be funny or serious or inspiring or silly, whatever you like. You can contribute those either via email or using the podcast's handy little SpeakPipe voice message recording website if the story is 90 seconds or less. The links for those will, of course, be in the show notes, as well as coming out of my face momentarily. That's BandWagon for this week. Thanks as always for downloading and listening. BandWagon was written, researched, and produced by your humble host. Musical interludes were produced by Hammerton Media from source material largely by John Philip Sousa. You can listen to more episodes at the pod's website, heyband.podbean.com. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you like or what you think might change. You can do that using the email address heybandwagon@yahoo.com or leave a 90-second voice message by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon. Told you I'd have those links. Be aware that I do reserve the right to include your message on the podcast unless you say otherwise. Those contacts and links to this week's news items, conversation topics, and my interview guest, Greg Smith, can be found in our show notes, as can a link to BandWagon's merch store thanks to the good folks at TeePublic. Please share the show on social media, and thank you for that. If you enjoy this podcast, please do share it in the direction of someone whom you think might not be a listener yet. Word of mouth really is the best recruiting tool. And to keep up with the pod every week, subscribe to BandWagon on the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are sold. For now, take care, stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll do this all again next week. I'm Rob Hammerton, and remember, dress code is festive.